and economic rebirth of the Oregon Cave Chateau. Thank you for taking the time today. We will be recording this session, so if you have anyone who wants to learn more, you can share the recording later. We will share it out to everyone who is registered. My name is Tori Middlestat. I'm the Executive Director of Visit Grants Pass, and the Oregon Caves National Monument and Chateau are iconic visitor experiences for the area, and we work to collaborate with all the experts on this call to help get the Chateau reopened. Thank you for those who are attending, and thank you also to Travel Southern Oregon, who's providing our Zoom room today and the technical assistance. In this session, we'll be discussing the history of the restoration project, the historical value of this property, the modern day value, the economic importance of our gateway communities and the region, and you'll learn how you can help save the Oregon Caves Chateau. As we move through this session, please feel welcome to drop questions into the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen. After our program, we'll work to answer as many questions as time allows. Today, we have a delightful panel, which includes Sue Densmore, Executive Director of the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau, Nicole Possert, with the Executive Director of Restore Oregon, Colin Deverell, Northwest Senior Program Manager with the National Park Conservation Association, and Megan Pugh, the Executive Director of the Illinois Valley Chamber of Commerce. Sue, would you like to take it away with a little history of this project?
Yes, thank you, Tori. Can everybody hear me? I guess so. Okay. And thanks to all the partners who are here with us today on this panel. And I want to say, and also a thank you to our board of directors of the Friends. They have been with us through thick and thin, and now we have a blue ribbon committee, and we have many donors and foundations who have gotten us to this point. And as Nicole said last night, today we have the Friends of the Friends here. You on the Zoom as well as the panel are here to help, as well as the Park Service. And I just want to say thank you to our superintendent, Jeremy, and the amazing staff that work every single day up at the monument to share this amazing place with us and to protect it and make it available to future generations and the many families that enjoy it. And thank all of you for joining us today to learn more about what's going on in the restoration of this national treasure, the Oregon Caves Chateau. The Oregon Caves, although it has a plural name, it's really only one single cave. We need to make sure we clarify that. At 400 acres, was dedicated as a national monument in 1909 by President Howard Taft. It was expanded in 2014 to over 4,000 acres and is now called the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve. The Oregon Caves have been an important part of the Oregon heritage and has proven to be an integral economic asset to this region. The Oregon Cave Chateau, which is in the picture behind me, opened in 1934. It was built by the Oregon Caves Company, a private group of Grants Pass businessmen and investors who had been managing the Oregon Caves since 1922. They'd hosted visitors in tents, later cabins, and they decided it was time for a luxury hotel with a welcoming lobby, indoor plumbing, and private rooms. They furnished the lodge with the whimsical, rare, and iconic Monterey furniture, which is now, we know, the largest collection anywhere. Their vision was to attract individuals who could afford to travel in their private automobiles and were seeking luxurious accommodations. The Oregon Caves were the namesake to many businesses in Josephine County, including Grants Pass High School cavemen. The Redwoods Hotel dining room in Grants Pass was called the Caves Grotto. It was intended to look like a cave, and dining was considered to be the height of elegance there in the 1920s. The nearest town, Cave Junction, is the gateway to the Oregon Caves. The Grants Pass businessmen also created a booster group called the Grants Pass Cavemen. Many presidents, and even Shirley Temple, became honorary cavemen. It was designated the Chateau was designated as a National Historic Landmark in 1987. The Chateau was one of the great lodges in the National Park Service, the Pacific West, and of course in the state of Oregon. The Chateau is a rare example of what they call parkitecture, which in the Park Service it's referred to the idea that it just looks like it grew up out of the ground. It was meant to be there. And it continues to be the centerpiece of the Oregon Caves Historic District. The Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau began in 2007 under the recommendation of our Senator Ron Wyden. He suggested a Friends group would bring additional strength to the Oregon Caves And he continues to be proud that he helped gain approval for the expansion in 2014 and to designate the River Styx, which runs through the cave, as the one and only, underground wild and scenic river. The Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau are an official, nonprofit, philanthropic partner of the Park Service. Our mission is to preserve, protect, and improve the cultural and natural resources of the monument and the preserve. Our current focus is in the restoration of the historic character of the lodge, while the Park Service is responsible for the structural upgrades. In 2018, the National Park Service received funding to complete life, safety, and accessibility upgrade. This included new wiring, plumbing to meet modern codes, creating universal access, and with accommodations to meet all the ADA and ABA requirements. This included an elevator, and as they were working on site in 2020, additional structural and seismic deficiencies were discovered. After a plan was developed to address these issues, the restoration has been paused until additional funding can be secured. Now closed since 2018, the NPS is completing the stabilization of the Chateau, working to protect it from the elements and decrease any further degradation until additional funding is secured. Also, the NPS and their partner, ARG, are working to complete new plans that would allow the structural and seismic work to be done in phases and then complete the life safety and accessibility project that was earlier started. The Friends have secured support from the state of Oregon, many individuals, foundations, to continue to complete the work that can be done while the lodge is under restoration. This includes the restoration of the 97 original interior and exterior doors. We've also secured funding to bring back the balconies, the restoration of over 400 pieces of Monterey furniture, and those of you who love the red stools. The Chateau is an integral part of the monument, creating a complete visit with visitor services, local art, dining, and lodging. Every day, the Friends receive queries of when the Chateau will open again for business meetings, local families wanting to celebrate special occasions, individuals and families from all over the United States hoping to make a return trip or come for the first time and enjoy the cave tour, hike the trails, enjoy a milkshake in the diner, or a glass of wine in the cozy lobby in front of the fireplace. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for that update. Now, I would like to pass it to Nicole from Restore Oregon to speak to the historical value of the lodge.
Thank you so much, Tori. I'm the Executive Director of Restore Oregon, and Restore Oregon is the only nonprofit working statewide that advocates to advance community transformation through historic preservation and reuse. Since 1977, we have helped empower Oregonians to preserve and reimagine their communities' historic and cultural places by working with partners like the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau. As Sue mentioned, the Oregon Caves Chateau is a National Historic Landmark. It is designated for its value and significant to our nation's history. And that is one of unique specialty of this designation. We have just 17 National Historic Landmarks in our entire state of Oregon. So it is recognized as one of America's great historic lodges, but surprisingly, it's lesser known to Oregonians than our other famous lodges, Timberline or Crater Lake. So we need to change that. And this webinar is helping to raise awareness of the Chateau and its importance to Oregon. It is a national treasure in Cave Junction. Once restored, it will be the only historic lodge in the entire park system to feature all of its original interior furnishings, that unique Monterey furniture that Sue spoke about. But in order for that future to be realized, we are raising our hands to be part of a statewide network of partners to refresh this effort to get the Chateau over the finish line. Restore Oregon has been working with the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau since 2016, when we added the Chateau to our Most Endangered Places program. This is a program that we do in order to help bring attention to places of importance when they are challenged with complex needs and are vulnerable. We also bring our technical expertise to assist people and groups like the Friends working to preserve the places that showcase Oregon's cultural heritage. So the Most Endangered Places designation is one way in which we help call upon the public's attention that support and action is needed now. The Oregon Cave Chateau should no longer be the least known of our famous lodges in Oregon. Many years ago, our organization helped create similar awareness and action campaign when Crater Lake Lodge faced some complexities and challenges. And today it's a shining beacon of Oregon's tourism industry. We are continuing in our legacy to make sure that the Oregon Cave Chateau returns fully restored, interior and exterior, for all of the future generations to enjoy. So restoring the grandeur of this historic chateau requires all of us, Oregonians and Americans, to come together, to lend our collective voice, our support, and actions for the chateau to once again be operating as one of America's grand lodges, bustling with guests from all over the world, enjoying Oregon's unique heritage. Thank you to everyone who's with us this morning. I look forward to expanding our circle of support. Tori.
Thank you, Nicole. The gateway communities are so important. So let's hear from Megan in Cave Junction and the value of the Chateau to our most local community.
Thank you, Tori. And thank you everyone for joining us today as we take this time to explore the rich history and significance of the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve and the historic Chateau. This architectural marvel stands as a symbol of Cave Junction and the Illinois Valley's heritage, weaving together stories of the past and present. But beyond its historical allure, the Chateau serves as an economic lifeline for our communities. Every year, the monument draws thousands of visitors, injecting vital tourism dollars into our local economy. This influx sustains businesses, creates jobs, and fuels the livelihoods of our residents. However, the drop in overnight visitors due to the Chateau's closure in the fall of 2018 has created significant losses of these dollars. It's been proven time and time again, overnight visitors spend more than day visitors, and the loss of these overnight visitors to our community has slowed economic improvement in Cave Junction. In taking a closer look at the economic impact of the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve and the Chateau on our gateway communities, from 2012 to 2017, we witnessed a fluctuating trend in economic output, ranging from $5.6 million to $7.4 million annually. However, the closure of the Chateau has had a significant impact, leading to a decline in economic output, as well as a 10% decrease in travel industry job opportunities in the subsequent years. In Josephine County, 55%, that's over half of our households, are living under financial hardship. As such, these tourism dollars are a much needed boost to our local economy. In addition, the closure of the Chateau removed 30 full-time jobs, as well as a host of associated contracts, such as food vendors and local artisan creations that were made available within the gift shop. Despite these challenges, in 2022, with an estimated 73,000 visitors to the monument, we saw a resurgence in economic activity. Visitors spent an estimated $6.8 million within our gateway communities while visiting the Oregon Caves. To highlight the vital role of visitors in sustaining our local economy, these tourism dollars supported 93 jobs and generated $3.3 million in labor income. The importance of lodging at the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve has been recognized for decades. As far back as 1928, before the Chateau was even constructed, George C. Sabin, the head of the concessionaire at the time, emphasized the necessity of adequate facilities for guests, understanding that they are essential for attracting visitors to the caves. This historical insight underscores the enduring significance of the Chateau's overnight visitation and its role in shaping our community's prosperity. Preventing the decay of our national historic landmark is paramount. Without the seismic stabilization, this historic monument will only remain a relic, Generations will be told of a once glorious era at a luxury park lodge rather than an experience to be had by future generations. The Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve and the historic Chateau remain a cornerstone of our economic vitality, our cultural heritage preservation, and environmental stewardship. The Oregon Caves Chateau stands as a testament to our shared heritage, our resilience, and our responsibility. As we celebrate its legacy, let us continue to support and preserve this iconic landmark, ensuring its lasting impact on Cave Junction, the Illinois Valley, and beyond. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today.
Thanks, Megan. I'd like to have Colin with the National Park Conservation Association talk about the role of the National Park Service in maintaining this treasure and some of the challenges that lay ahead.
Thanks, Troy. Hey, everyone. I'm Colin Deverell. I'm the Northwest Senior Program Manager for the National Parks Conservation Association. NPCA is the national 501c3 nonpartisan advocacy group for our national parks. The Park Service, which owns and administers the National Monument and Preserve, can't lobby and fundraise for itself. That's why organizations like NPCA and the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau exist to speak up on behalf of these incredible places. And we're proud to be a supporter of this important project. Megan gave a really amazing overview of the local economic impacts of the Oregon Caves, but I'm going to zoom out a little bit and talk about the role of the National Park Service and our national parks to our national economy and how investments in our parks are really needed. So the Park Service is driven by the Organic Act of 1916 to preserve natural and historic objects, wildlife, and scenery unimpaired for future generations. The Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve is one of several park units owned and managed by the National Park Service in Oregon. And the mission of this park is to study and interpret the caves themselves, provide for recreation, and preserve the iconic historic resources there, including the Chateau. And the Park Service, as you all know, is a government agency with a public benefit mission overseeing more than 400 national park units across the country, all of which that have enormous economic impacts. In 2023, there were over 325 million visits to our national parks, almost one visit for every American. 2023 was the second busiest year on record for national park visitation. These visitors to national parks spend more than $24 billion in gateway communities across the country, supporting more than 370,000 jobs and $17 billion in labor income. For those of us in Oregon, national park visitors spent more than $85 million in our gateway communities, most of which are in Southern Oregon, like you heard from Megan. So you may be wondering, though, if this is a national park, why hasn't the Park Service restored the Chateau already? Well, as a federal agency, the National Park Service ability to make those big investments in places like the Oregon Cave Chateau is dependent on the funding provided to them by Congress. And unfortunately, over the last decade, the funding needed for our national parks has not kept pace with park needs. Between 2012 and 2022, the Park Service has lost 13% of its staff positions across the country. At Oregon Caves, that's translated to fewer rangers and fewer tours of the landmark caves. Last budget passed by Congress paints an even more challenging picture. Further cuts to the Park Service operating budget, cuts to its construction and rehabilitation budget, and cuts to the Historic Preservation Fund. All of these funding sources are critical to sustaining the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve and the iconic Chateau. And the need for that funding has never been higher. So while NPCA and advocates for additional funding in Congress, organizations like the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau are bringing people together to invest in our park treasures now so that we have them forever. And we all know that's a wise choice. For every dollar invested in the National Park Service and our national parks, more than $15 is generated for our economic activity. So we need people like you to support our national parks and historic lodges like the Oregon Cave Chateau going forward. So on behalf of all of us in this briefing, we really invite you to join us in championing this irreplaceable historic asset. And I'll turn it back to Tori, who can tell you more about how we can get involved and answer questions.
Thank you, Colin, and our entire panel. The true value of this great lodge just cannot be understated, and there are several ways that you can help as we look to the future. First, advocate the renewal of the Great America Outdoors Act. That current act sunsets in 2025, and it's been helping work through the backlog of maintenance in the national park system. And this will be, if it gets renewed, will be a great funding opportunity to help support the restoration work of the Oregon Cave Chateau. Visit. The Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve is still open, even without the chateau. Pack your lunch, bring your own water bottle, come enjoy the caves in a caves tour. And there's also 6 hiking trails that you can embark on right from the visitor center at the caves entrance. Make a tax-deductible donation to the Friends of the Oregon Caves and Chateau. You can sponsor individual restoration projects, or you can donate directly to the Seismic and Stabilization Fund. Share your experiences at the Oregon Caves National Monument and Preserve or the Chateau. You can use hashtags #MyCaveStory or hashtag #MyChateauStory. Continuing to tell people about your great experience here, whether it was last year, 10 years ago, whether you've been lucky enough to even stay in the Chateau, are all ways that people can help see the grand value of this project. Join the community support letter. On my slide, you can see a screenshot of it where we have regional organizations signing up to show their support for the project, which is being used as part of our advocacy work in DC. And last, continue to stay in the know. All of the organizations on this panel have an e-newsletter program of which we continue to share updates of this project. If you scan that QR code on the slide, it goes directly to a landing page that has resources and direct links to work and do any of the things asked today on how you can help, from going directly into advocating to your federal electeds to signing up to our e-newsletters. So that QR code goes directly to a resource landing page. We will also send that resource landing page link out in our email with the recording after this session. So we would like to move into the question and answer session. So there's plenty of time to still drop questions in that Q&A box. But I do want to kind of kick off with probably the burning question of anyone on this call is, what is the next step for the Chateau? And do we have a total cost for this restoration project? And this is directed towards Sue.
Yes, thank you, Tori. That is the $64,000 question. When you open up a historic building, even it's your house, you're going to find things that you didn't expect. And I think that's really the main issue here. We did start with the life safety and accessibility. We thought we'd be done in just a few years. And we did find that the lodge, being 90 years old, needed some stabilization of the foundation and some upgrading for seismic expectations. As you all know, if you've done any kind of restoration with the lodge now, we must meet those expectations, as well as ADA, ABA new requirements. So the answer to the question is, the Park Service has contributed funding to the beginning of this work. They are currently working on an immediate stabilization project to just so that we don't want the lodge to degrade in any way as we're waiting for additional funding. So currently they're up there with a team working on the immediate stabilization. And they also have a fund for the maintenance and the care of the lodge. To answer the big picture, we are now have a team with Park Service and ARG who are looking at ways that we might be able to phase the restoration. We started out with the whole idea, let's do it all at once. And as Colin said, Park Service funding, it was a big number. So now we're breaking it down into phases. And so the number, we don't have the number. We are working on creating the number. And the other issue with something like this is it would have to go out for bid. And so we would not publicly share the cost that might be the expectation in advance, because we would need to receive bids to do the work. So I hope that starts to answer the question. There may be further follow-ups. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue, for that. You know, we talked about the Monterey furniture and its historical value. I think some people might be curious of how will it be comfortable to have that historic furniture.
Yeah, I can talk about kind of the work of the Friends. We have worked with the state of Oregon to gain funding in cooperation with the Centennial Fund to bring back the balconies. Those of you who might have never had a chance to sit on the balcony, those will be coming back as part of the restoration. There'll be a balcony at the lobby level as well as the dining level. So you can eat outside and it's very fun. The other thing that the Friends are doing is we're restoring all the 97 interior and exterior doors. One of the things that was not on the Park Service list was to restore all the doors. That means handicapped hardware and anything that will make them make the lodge accessible. Now, Tori's question about the furniture, it will be comfortable. It'll be strengthened if needed to be. It will have king size beds, queen size beds, but in the sense of our restorer, who is Ramon Ramirez, who actually is also the person working with Diane Keaton, because she also has a full collection of Monterey furniture. He says Monterey is a concept. So we will have all the fun illustrations will be on all the furniture, but the furniture itself will be comfortable and upgraded like any hotel would have. I mean, it's 90 years old and most hotels change their furniture out every 7 years. We've still got this magnificent furniture. You can enjoy it and you will be able to you'll learn a lot about the Monterey furniture when you come there, because we do have examples of all the different styles, and there were many. And again, it was designed for movie stars moving west in the 1930s, and we do have the largest public collection. And it's really fun. You'll really enjoy it when you come back. And we again will be the only lodge in the Park Service with its original furniture in the rooms.
Thank you, Sue. And just to continue on to that, there was a question of what is Monterey furniture, and I think we hit that. It's historic, wonderful handmade furniture that it was luxury furniture back in the day, and it has continued to just be beautiful furniture that stands the test of time.
Really go ahead.
So this next question, probably also for you, Sue, is once the funding is secured, how long would it take to finish the restoration work and reopen the Chateau?
You know, again, our goal was to do it all at once, take the lodge apart, put it all back together and be done. Since we do not currently have the funding to do that, now it will be broken down into phases. And so I think really the answer to that question is the sooner we get the full funding necessary, the sooner the lodge will open. I would guess it will be at least a couple of years. Our dream would be within a couple of years. I think Park Service's response was 5, 10 to 15 years. And the reason we're here today is that we want to help, if we can, find additional funding to support what the Park Service will be able to contribute in the future. As Colin said, they've got 465 properties that they own and oversee, and in almost every case, there is a friends group. In the Golden Gate, they bring millions of dollars to assist the properties in California. So this is not unusual that a friends group would be asking for support. And we hope that sponsors, individuals, organizations, anyone who might want to join, we would welcome that, and that would get us open sooner, I think is the answer to your question.
Thank you, Sue. So how much has been allocated to immediate stabilization? How much has the Park Service already spent on this project?
In the original project in 1920 was 8.6 million, and that was the life, safety, and accessibility. And that project took it, what we're saying is down to the studs. If you look at Colin's picture behind him, that shows what the lobby currently looks like. And the interesting thing in restoration work, as Nicole says, it's just remarkable. You can see the beauty of the construction right there. I mean, it was so well built. It is so worth restoring and keeping it up to date. So the 8.6 million, I want to say, took it down to the studs, as you can see there. Then an additional 4.5 million has been given to just maintain all the different restoration stabilization work. And currently a $780,000 project has just been awarded to work on the roof. And if any of you have been up there when we did, we're worried about a fire. There used to be it looked like it was pouring down rain on the outside of the building. So the fire prevention structure is going to be repaired. So they're doing things like that currently. So that answers your question. 8.6 million, 4.75 million, and 780,000. And then the Friends have we've probably raised 2.5 million for the projects we're working on that have been complementing the work of the Park Service.
Thank you, Sue. And just to reiterate to anyone listening on this call is that work is still happening. It hasn't just gone as the exact pause. The National Park Service has been re-timelining projects out, and they want to make sure if they do any work that when the stabilization work happens, it wouldn't need to be redone. So they're being very specific of what projects continue to be worked on. Sue, this is another question for you and the goal of the Friends of what is your fundraising goal for supporting this work by the National Park Service?
Well, we had a whole set of goals earlier, which was about 4 million, which would have completed the restoration of the furniture and the doors, and eventually, like Tori and I were talking yesterday, artwork. We have dining room chairs that need to be painted. I mean, there's many things that the Friends were doing. So our work is probably to continue the historic part, probably 4 to 5 million. We have committed to this particular effort, which is today we're talking awareness. We're just sharing with you what we think needs to be done, but our goal would be to raise a minimum of 10 million, as Tori said, to keep the work going. As Jeremy has explained to us, we don't want to, if we can bring in 10 million, there could be other funders that would bring in additional funding. So our goal with a campaign that will take place in the future is 10 million at a minimum to give to the Park Service to work initially on the exterior stabilization. This would be what our ARG and Park Service are currently creating the plans for, is what Jeremy refers to as exterior stabilization, which his goal or their goal is to not do anything that would be taken apart as they move to the full restoration. If we did it all at once, it sure would be easier. But at this point, it looks like we're going to have to do it in phases. And so that would be our goal for the first, not the first phase. We're probably in the second or third phase, but yeah.
Thank you, Sue. And for anyone on the call who's not aware on the call, Jeremy is our wonderful superintendent at the Oregon Cave National Park and Reserve. He's doing an amazing job up there. Colin, I'm going to ask a question to you of how do you see NPCA continuing to support this effort as we do embark or look for supportive funds with the National Park Service?
Right. I think now is really a critical time for people to speak up for our national parks, not just so that they have the resources to provide the world-class service that we all expect when we go to a national park, but also to tackle these important projects like the restoration of the Oregon Cave Chateau. We're really proud to say we have more than 30,000 members and supporters across the state of Oregon, 1.3 million members and supporters across the country. But now is a really important time to act. So if you check out that amazing QR code that we had on the screen before, there'll be an opportunity for you to lend your voice in speaking up for the reauthorization of the Great American Outdoors Act, which was the landmark piece of legislation passed in 2020 that provided more than $9.5 billion to provide for deferred maintenance funding for projects like the Chateau to go towards our national parks. And like Tori mentioned before, that authorization expires in 2025. And so we need to restore that program, reauthorize that program, and extend it to make sure that we can fund projects, or the Park Service can fund projects like the Chateau and deferred maintenance projects across the country. So I'd urge you to reach out and check out that link, or reach out to your member of Congress. We have some amazing park champions across the state of Oregon who work really hard for our national parks. They could use your voice and hearing from you about how important that is to you. I think, you know, if you follow the news, you saw the fire news story about Timberline Lodge, and you think, what is this? What is happening up there? What is that thing? Places like the Chateau, places like Timberline aren't just amazing historic resources, but they're part of our identity as Pacific Northwesterners. What would that loss mean to those communities? What would the loss of this building mean to communities like Illinois Valley? Telling your member of Congress to stand up and invest in these places, invest in our parks, is really critical, and NPCA will be working to make sure that your voice is heard.
Thank you, Colin. Nicole, from your perspective at Restore Oregon, how do you see continuing your partnership and supporting this effort?
Thank you so much, Tori. Well, I believe the same is true. We are supporters of the lobbying that needs to happen at the federal level, whether it's through the Park Service Great Outdoors Act or through the Historic Preservation Fund, which is also the way that historic preservation gets funded through the National Park Service for specifically built environment resources that almost every national park has a historic place within its nature. And so there are a lot of opportunities at the federal level to help NPS get fuller funding, whether it's through all of these vehicles or a particular one. They're going to need all of these sources of revenue. So we would encourage people to get involved with how historic preservation and the natural environment are really blended together in this opportunity here to help. And then at the state level, we can do a lot of work together as Oregonians to help our state elected officials understand what a unique partnership, public-private partnership could be to invest in such an important piece of Oregon's history located in Southern Oregon and in a rural community that really can benefit from the multiplier of having an overnight accommodation and a luxurious overnight accommodation for everyone who's traveling to Oregon to experience.
Thank you, Nicole. And I have another question here, it's probably directed at Sue. Can you talk more about what exterior stabilization entails?
Oh boy, this is when we get into goodness. Jeremy or ARG or anybody but me is probably the best. I'll try to describe it, and we may need to follow up later. But what they basically found when they got into the lodge is it will need to have, if you've seen the columns in the middle, they're going to go through the columns up and down to put steel stabilization so that the 6 stories are stabilized with steel there. Also, my understanding is that they will be filling or somehow fitting in to the walls steel to stabilize the building this way as well. So there'll be it won't affect the exterior of it, which you can see. We'll still maintain the Port Orford cedar and this view that you can see right now. But for seismic, they do need to come in with steel this way, steel this way, and my understanding as well, they're going to come under the building, again, with additional stabilization. As you know, the Chateau is built in a canyon. How many buildings do you know that have been built in a canyon? And it is 6 stories in a canyon. And even though it had the 1964 flood that shook it a little bit off its foundation, it is still amazingly stable and strong for the future. So that's what I know. I think there will be as well some, as I understand it, they're going to go dig down the sides and put, because the foundation is like many old buildings, it's rocks and some things that isn't solid cement like we do now. And so they're going to go down the side and as well put some, it's got a new name and I can't remember the name of it, but it's going to be new cement down the side. And I believe they're also going to do some cement or some new flooring in the very bottom again to stabilize it. I think the goal is here, they want to do it right. We just want to do it right this time. And really that's, I think, what the delay has been with the Park Service is once we got into looking at the building, realized it needed this work, we do not want to come back again and have to do this work. And so that's why they paused the life safety and said, if we're going to do it, let's do it right. It's worth doing. It's 90 years old. It can last another 90 years, but it really needs to be done right. So that is the reason for this stabilization. Not that it isn't strong and well built. It's just that it does need, and for current, if you touch an old building, Nicole knows this, once you touch a historic building, particularly a National Historic Landmark Lodge, owned by the Park Service, oh my goodness, there are additional needs that need to be met so that it will be done right. And I think that's one of our biggest concerns. We work with the State Historic Preservation Office, the National Historic preservation, because of our designation of the landmark, it does give additional overlays of what needs to be done when it's being restored. But as we all know, many, many, many buildings have been restored, and it's just, it couldn't be replaced. I think people look at it and they say, is it worth it? Yep. If you look at the picture behind Megan, they asked us for a sketch of what it's going to look like in the future. A sketch. We said, well, we don't want to bring in an interior decorator and do something different. What we like is the way it was. And so you'll come back and it'll be updated and cozy. And you can see with Nicole's picture, that's the original picture with some of the furniture. You can see the furniture. That's some of the furniture we're restoring. But the fun thing is, it'll be updated and wonderful, but it will not be a brand new interior decorator's idea of what the lodge should look like. It's going to be fun and interesting and lovely, as the pictures show behind Megan. So that's enough
Thank
for
you,
that.
Sue. Thank you, Sue. I can tell you have such a passion for the Chateau. I love hearing you talking about it. For our last and final question, I would like to have Megan speak to, just as I've been down in the community, Cave Junction has really worked to use the closure of the Chateau and the reopen date to work on filling their main street, open new businesses, make Cave Junction the welcoming gateway community that it is. And I'd love to just give her a minute to give some updates of what's happening in Cave Junction.
Thank you, Tori. Yes, so we have a newly formed Main Street Cave Junction group that the Chamber has been working very closely with. We realize with this closure that now is the time to make our Main Street more welcoming. There are thousands and thousands of visitors that are passing through here daily, but they're not stopping here. So in order to get them to stop here, we have got to work harder to make it more welcoming. There are plans in the works for flower planting this Saturday. There's also plans for murals that are going to go up. I believe that the Bigfoot Plaza is going to be the first one to get a mural. There's been community cleanup days. We are definitely working really hard to make this a welcoming atmosphere for everyone that comes through here. Working on new parking and wayfaring signage to show people where the city park is. We would like to create a dog park eventually. We know that a lot of folks that are traveling like to get out and walk their dogs around in town, and so it would be fun to have some signage up for them. And we are also working with the GP Remembrance Project on some kind of historical markers in our community. So yeah, we know that once the Chateau is open again, we will be getting those visitors, and we want them to stop and stay and play.
Thank you, Megan. I'm so glad. I'm so glad to hear that the community is embracing the reopening as their own even reopening for the town. And I love to see that progress happening in Cave Junction. So thank you. Thank you so much to everyone on our panel for taking the time today. Travel Southern Oregon, who again is providing the Zoom room and technical assistance for us, and everyone who attended today. They'd really like to reinforce that the historic and economic value of the Chateau for our communities means it really cannot be lost. We'll take all of our support to save the Chateau. And if you have any questions, Sue is who you would want to contact with Friends of Oregon Caves. You can reach her with her email, info@friendsocac.org. Again, her email is info@friendsocac.org. So thank you again for everyone. We will share this recording. We'll share the direct link to our resource page. And please help us keep the Chateau project moving forward, because we want to invite you all back down here to come stay in this wonderful Grand Lodge. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Tori. Thank you, everybody on the panel.